Hello and happy Thursday, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Cloud Foundry Weekly. As you see, we have our guests ready to go here. Nikki is running late. He may show up at any time, so when Nikki shows up, the party will officially start. But otherwise, we'll keep on going here. But we have friends of the pod, Corby and Fynes back. I don't know. I think maybe is this the first time you've been on the show together at the same time? I think
so.
Yeah. Otherwise, running
contract that I'm not supposed to appear with Mark, but okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. We didn't get your trailer set up either, but the green screen. I'm sorry. Thanks for still doing the show, even though we completely didn't follow through any of our obligations on CF Weekly for our star content here. Shout out to Keith. Good to see you as well. I guess I've been going like full tilt all morning, so I'm just gonna get right into it. It's just a crazy day, but I guess probably because Explore's next week, and everything happens in the last few days. Just trying to get everything going. So getting stuff ready for Explore. But I wanted to bring this topic up. We talk about the MCP Model Context Protocol, agentic AI tooling. That's very very common these days, but security around MCP servers and how that happens is also another topic that a lot of people are trying to figure out and go from there. And Mark and Corby have been doing a lot of this stuff internally. And I figured it'd be a great time to bring them on to kind of like show their work and what they're doing in this space. And that was kind of my thought for the show. And I think I can just like walk away now and let Mark and Corby talk and come back in like an hour and it'll be great. But yeah, that's me setting the stage. I don't know, Corby or Mark, if you guys how you want to kick off, but that's kind of the flow for today. How about that?
Well, yeah, I guess I could start with it was interesting because I think I've been on showing some of what I'll show later, but in a different context. And Corby came along with the killer use case for me a few weeks ago, and it was like, hey, we've got these MCP servers, which are REST services. We need to protect them in a simple way, using as much of the platform's capabilities out of the box as possible. And it's a whole new domain. I was getting super excited as I've been using Corby's workshops and learning just how much sizzle there is in showing augmented AI, meaning you're bringing in functionality from either RAG or from agents. And it's just been a ton of fun. So thank you, Corby, for those workshops I've been able to use of yours, and then it's great fun to be able to contribute a little piece, solve for a little piece of the pie and how it all fits together.
Yeah, I got stuck on a problem and Mark solved it, so I'd say we're pretty much co-equal contributors here. Hey, Nikki.
Yeah, the party has started. Right, we are ready to go. Right,
yeah. Nikki
is here. All right. Well, Nikki, we were just kind of setting the stage for the topic, so we're talking about securing MCP servers. All right.
My apologies for being late.
Yeah.
Work got in the way, but I'm here now and I'm talking to three of my favorite guys in the whole entire world. So I can't wait to jump into this.
Awesome. Okay.
Well, last time I was on here, we were doing MCP servers. I was showing making your own apps and creating natural language interfaces to it. But I bet Nikki Pike from Coder can tell us where MCP servers are actually being used by most enterprises these days.
You're looking at a lot of integrations. When you start looking at all the AI tools that are out there, we're starting to see, one of the great things, or I won't say one of the great things, one of the most important things about AI is context. It has to have context. So where are they getting that context? Well, you've got, companies that have, Confluence pages, wiki pages, they've got databases, even things like Granola to record meetings. These are all things that companies are using. And the best way to make sure that they can, your AI agents can get that context is through MCP servers. It makes it very easy. So we are seeing MCP servers being that kind of AI bridge, that interconnected fabric that's happening between the agents themselves and all the context that companies have. And every company's got different, endpoints of context, and how are they bringing those in?
Excellent. Well, let's take a look. Let's see. I'm going to have to give my Mac permission here.
Oh, we
Good
haven't
to
even tried yet.
I'm just like you.
Yeah.
You have a new. Nick, I have a new machine. Are you running on your new
No.
MacBook right now?
So I got my MacBook last night. It came pretty late, so I just like got the account and everything set up on it yet. I have not built my tool chain on it yet, so I'm still on my old machine.
And you can see him; he's vibrating. He's just like, "All right, let's get through this hour so I can go play with my new toy."
Exactly.
Yeah. All right.
All
Well, if you need
Your
permissions,
screen.
you may have to bounce out and come back in.
we see the screen.
Oh,
Somehow
yeah,
I
I
made it
think-
through, so looking
Yeah.
good. Okay.
Here we
So y'all
go.
probably remember this before. This is the application that I work on, but
Mhm.
it's been I've been kind of slowed down in development, so I'm going to need some of these Nikki style tools to get me sped up here. I got a outstanding GitHub issues. It says get the CF weekly viewers excited. In the top level, Matt Toolball create a button for increasing motivation, and when a user clicks the button, it will display for 3 seconds when a 5 predefined motivational messages selected at random.
Okay.
Let me go ahead and turn up the zoom here on my.
Oh yes, yeah. Much appreciated.
Here. Over here. Okay.
Yeah,
that looks
Okay.
good.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Better.
Okay,
All right.
so I got my Claude code going on here, and I'll just go ahead and tell it here. Go ahead and review issue number 26 in GitHub. That should be, that's our issue here. Check out our branch and implement the issue in the branch, perform a CF push, and then create a pull request with your changes. So it's going to go ahead and go now. And of course, what is happening? We have an AI tool running, and it's executing a bunch of local MCP servers, right? So this is a little bit different than what we saw before. And these MCP servers are doing things like touching my local file system and changing the code files there. They interacted with GitHub here to see what the issue requirements are. And they are going to ultimately interact with my Cloud Foundry Foundation and push after it makes the changes, it's going to push the changes out to my dev environment so I can test the changes and make sure that everything's working here and get things going. So I'm sure, Nikki, this is a type of use case that you work with a lot of customers on.
We do. So, being able to automate a lot of these tasks, and there's a difference between automation and having, kind of the agentic agent going out and doing things for you. But, absolutely, this is what we're seeing, GitHub issues. That is a great way to use agents. Go out and start working on those. The one thing I'm going to caution, make sure you got some guardrails around your agents so that they don't just go out and, delete a database.
I'm sorry. It says bypass permissions on. I don't know if you can see that, Nikki. This is how I roll.
That's the reason I bring it up.
Yeah.
So, this is all stuff running on my local machine, and so it may raise the question: well, what the hell does this have to do with Cloud Foundry?
What does it have to do, right?
Exactly. Well, and Nikki can tell you from his company that what happens here is that once you get this idea for using these different MCP servers, you pretty quickly run into the issue of how do you manage it at scale? How do you keep idiots like me from installing this on my local corporate laptop, arbitrary MCP servers, turning bypass permissions on, running wild, and sucking up the company code base.
Just a quick disclaimer, Corby, you're not using your Broadcom laptop, right? You're using your personal laptop. Everything's fine here, folks. Okay, keep on rolling.
Never tell.
All right.
So,
way to just throw Corby under the bus.
No, he's not. He's using his actual personal piece. Sorry, we had a whole thing on this. I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to. No, yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your flow.
Personal laptop.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I'm in a mood today. Let's keep rolling. My bad.
And if anybody's looking for a great engineer, you might have someone that's going to be open to work on LinkedIn here soon. We don't know.
Yeah,
Okay.
actually, full disclaimer, they did ban these tools on my company laptop. And so, like Nick, I have a brand new MacBook Pro that I purchased a week ago. so I can fight against the man. Okay, so what we are going to want to do here is get out of the business. We want to be like Hawk 10, and we want to ban developers from installing and running this stuff on the local laptops, and instead we want to get this up and running a managed environment. So right now, of course, I'm running these MCP servers locally, which means I'm using a interface called the standard IO interface for running on your local machine. But what we want to do is something more like what we saw last time on CF Weekly, where we get this stuff deployed and running on Cloud Foundry, where it can be centrally managed through remote interfaces, and then we can get all the benefits of the platform in terms of being able to get authentication and authorization and access and multi-tenancy and all that great stuff here. So first problem we're going to have to solve here. Oh, it looks like we're up. Okay, so our agent finished here. It did a wonderful job of doing the code changes, doing a pull request, authoring release notes, pushing it out to Cloud Foundry. Let's check it out here. I'm going to check out my pull request, and it wrote up my release notes. That's very good here. So we got everything running on here. We can see the code changes that it made in order to implement the test. And let's go ahead and check our live running application in our dev environment here. And aha, we have our little motivation button here. Fantastic. So now the CF Weekly people can get excited, and we're getting new messages here, and we're good to go. Obviously, this is a silly example, but this type of workflow is what's getting a lot of customers, all of our customers really excited in terms of saying, hey, how can we get more efficiency from the engineering team, get a lot of the drudge work eliminated, allow our real smart engineers to be able to focus kind of on higher level design, architectural thinking, and get a lot of this common stuff out of the way here. So first problem we're going to have to solve here is how to I'm using the open source GitHub MCP server, which is maintained by our friends at GitHub, and they actually only distribute it using that standard IO model, meaning you have to download this artifact and run it on your local desktop, which is not what we want to do at scale, right? That's not what we want to do for safety and security. So how can Cloud help us here? How can we get this thing deployed? We came up with this MCP protocol adapter here, which is a simple Spring Boot application. And the way it works is we can take, in this case, I'm packaging it with the MCP server, but this is arbitrary. You can grab any MCP server, standard IO. So you can grab your tools for Jira or Jenkins or whatever it is that your preferred tooling is that you want to get running here. It's using a standard IO transport. But what we're going to do is we're going to write a Spring Boot application. It's a small Spring Boot application. We call it a protocol adapter. And the Spring Boot application listens on the SSE interface, and then it translates the request to the standard IO interface. Then here's what we do. We take that Spring Boot application and we take the MCP server, which in this case happens to be a Go application. We stick them together in a Docker file and we CF push the Docker file. So now we have a running deployment, and we'll see Mark interact with it later in the show here. But what it does is, to the end user, it just looks like a regular SSE interface. A application can connect to it and register it just like they would with a normal SSE server. But under the covers, it's implementing everything through standard IO.
So this is running on the platform, or this is something that each developer will need to put in as part of their project? Is this a bindable service, or is this?
This is we're not. So you can bind the service, and in fact, we'll show that workflow as well. But
I'm jumping ahead of you, aren't I, Corby?
Yeah, you are. I love it. But what I'm interested in is the workflow that you're very familiar with, Nikki, which is basically that in your IDE, you register the SSE endpoint for an MCP server. And now and now as a developer, I didn't have to install and run the MCP server locally, but I get access to all the MCP goodness in my IDE, and I can do all these crazy workflows like we just did here in terms of doing the interface for my application, right?
Okay.
All right. Cool. So we've got like one problem with Cloud Foundry. It's like, how do we take a MCP server, a standard IO, and instead of sending it out to hundreds of developers and having them each run and update them locally on your desktop, let's get a single centralized deployment out there, push it to Cloud Foundry, and just simply give devs the URL to access that, right? But we haven't secured it yet. And that's where the model context protocol spec is really kind of struggling here, right? They know that the number one need that everybody is saying, that the number one barrier to uptick in adoption on the enterprises is we need to improve security. We need to authorize who's accessing these tools and be able to control them. And that's where I ran out of ideas. That's where I got stuck. And so my buddy Mark came along.
Well, before we pass it off to Mark, I just want to go back to our conversation about local laptops, right?
Yes.
If you
which is, as far as I know, the only way you can possibly run an IDE, right?
There's multiple ways, Corby. And if you're one of those companies that are worried about, the code being on local, you're worried about shadow AI, you want to centrally manage that stuff behind your firewall. I know a guy you can come talk to. We can help you with taking that code off the local laptops. We can help you with building those standardized environments for development without losing any of that customization that you may get for your developers. I love the way Corby just teed that up for me.
I think this is our this is our first official crossover of Coder and Cloud Foundry and Tanzu, Nikki. So it's happening live as we speak. I like it.
That's right.
Very cool.
All right, Fynesy, you mad scientist? He's frozen, or else he's very still.
He looks real happy.
He does. At least he got frozen. He didn't get one of those stupid faces that most people.
Yeah. He froze last time. I mean, he was on a roll. One of the last episodes he was on, he froze, and then came back. So we'll just do a little,
While we're waiting for him, I'm just going to go ahead and bring this up because Abhishek is being very. He wants this question answered. So
and I'm back.
I'm just going to go ahead and bring it up. Abhishek, we see it. I think this is something we're going to get into a little bit later in the show.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Did Nikki go too? I see two of you.
Oh, we're all here.
It's so weird. I have the spinning circle for Nikki's corner of the screen. That's so weird. Murphy was an optimist from an Irish group. If it's not my lab, it's my machine. I'm having lockups at the perfect time today. Let's see if the present button will work. Let's see what happens.
He froze again.
Okay.
Oh, Fynesy.
Okay, so, I can't blame this one on StreamYard this time. This one's I'm going to blame Fynesy for this one.
Do we have questions for Abhishek?
Did nobody tell him that AOL is finally shutting down? Did nobody let him know that?
Nah, yeah, that is a funny tidbit. They're finally shutting down their dial-up service, right?
I didn't even know it still existed.
Yeah, there's still like hundreds of thousands of people who used it. Yeah.
I mean, with the proliferation of cell phones now, there's better ways to get on the internet than dial-up and AOL.
I mean, could you even try to imagine trying to use it though? Like take a Windows 11 machine and try to use it and see what would happen. It probably just wouldn't even work. But anyway,
I do reminisce about the modem sounds though.
Oh yes, that's the best part of dial-up.
Yeah, that's right. Nothing says movies hackers like a dial-up modem sound.
Yeah, so I guess while we wait, we did have a question about MCP to client data, and I think we're going to cover something like that. Now, Fynesy's back. Are you live? We see your Skelly draw.
Don't anybody move.
All right. Nobody touched the internet. Okay. We rebooted the giant Linksys router that the internet is, and everything's working.
I need a thicker monitor so I can slap the side of it harder to get the signal back. All right, let's see what happens here. Oh boy. Hopefully I didn't miss too much. I'm sure Nikki was rolling in an extra thick. I heard AOL while I was in between connectivity. Those bits got through.
Yeah,
Okay.
you've only got like another couple months before AOL shut down, Fynes, and you got to find
dear.
something different, buddy.
Oh dear. Oh dear. All right. Let's see if I can get going before I'm out offline again.
Mhm.
So I come at this bottom up, and I've got the story on what our platform that we all love can do. Corby's got this REST service. If you think about it, it needs to deploy and have security, operational efficiency, governance, auth before access, authorization, authentication, authorization. I've seen this movie before. We have a platform for that sort of stuff. And if you
I'm going to
remember,
interrupt you for a second.
yeah,
Can you make that? Okay,
Yes.
so you're going to something different. I was going to say, could you
Yeah.
blow that up a little bit?
All right. Yep,
These
will
old
do.
eyes.
Yep. So we know what we can do when we deploy something to the platform. We also know that we've got bindings, we've got this ingress figured out, and we have a gateway that is declarative that lets us do things like auth before access. We can do certificates. We can do all sorts of other cool things regarding protecting that service, and most importantly, easily protecting the last mile. All right, so I'm going to make this larger, and hopefully the screen will. All right, yeah. So we have our client. We have Corby's SSE enabled wrapper, our MCP server. We have our LLM. We're going to host the MCP server in our platform. Great. We know how to CF push. We'll be doing that. He's already got it running in the platform. Now the question is, how can I secure this entry point? We know that the platform will do MTLS all the way to the container. It'll take care of that ingress for us. But it turns out our marketplace offering has a gateway, an API gateway called Spring Cloud Gateway as a server right here in front. Now, we want the service to be protected. We have an enterprise SSO. Every enterprise has their own identity management already there. We don't want to reinvent the wheel. We don't want to be stuffing certs and keys and tokens anywhere specific. We need to be able to fit into the security model of that enterprise. So if there's the enterprise IDP down here, I can type. I would type it faster. We've also figured this out before, because when we deployed the platform and we made it available for all our developers or DevOps folks to come in and see the apps manager and see what they're running, or in some cases get permission to deploy the sandbox or have our pipelines use it, we've already got our platform integrated into the IDP. The really nice thing is that integration comes through an internal component of the platform called UAA. And that UAA is multi-tenant. It can have multiple what we call auth domains, meaning the same work that was done can be used up in the marketplace of the platform for applications to use. Meaning if we use Okta or if we use some other IDP to secure the platform and we want to surface that or other ones, we can surface them up, and we could let an app itself leverage that because we present a local token server. But we can go one more, and we can say we'd like a gateway that's built declaratively to work with the UAA, which would in turn just be transparent, and it would essentially bridge you into your enterprise IDP. And then that in turn would let us create an auth before access front end on top of that service. So what do? If we go to our apps, I would say this is a really, to Corby's point earlier, this is a part where there's a struggle. There's a spec that's moving fast. And there's a question, if I have an MCP, if I have functionality I'd like to wrap into an agent and have as an MCP server, it could be GitHub or Bitbucket, it could be Jenkins, could be any of the other services within our organization. We can see very quickly there's going to be an explosive growth in demand for onboarding agents, MCP servers, into our corporate approved generative AI. And so this is just step one of what will be a list of MCP services. So the question is, how can we standardize on securing them and protecting them? Well, the Spring Cloud Gateway is in my marketplace, and it's here. And so we can go into a marketplace and ask for an API gateway. Now, what's the benefit of that? This is not like going to any of those standard API management setups, because they typically have their own system. They're standalone. They're run by one team. and they might be a B2B portal protecting thing. But within an organization, when you're at the micro level, we need autonomy. We need to be able to create guardrailed ways to, in an agile way, create a protective layer, a policy enforcement point in front of a REST resource, in our case, an MCP server, and do it quickly and easily. So the onboarding with the IDP is hidden from us, because when we select the plan, if I go out to our marketplace, we can see that in this foundation, there's different identity providers that have been onboarded as plans. And so there's one we'll be using in a minute. My gateway, when I create my gateway, can use one of my SSO plans, which are really tenants in the UAA. This translates into us being able, in just a few lines of YAML, define what that gateway is going to look like, so it can facade one or more MCP servers and enforce an auth check. Now, if it's an auth flow, it will send you down to log in if you're coming into a browser. But if you have your token, you will, pending a valid token, of course, with the right scopes, you'll be allowed through. Now, we talked about how this is an evolving spec and it's an evolving space. And so one of the things we were working with was the constraint of where the tools are at the moment. And so in this case, I can define pick your plugin, a way to authenticate against the MCP server. And we're going to come back here. But if I want to provide a bearer token, actually, I wanted the other UI. Where is my N? Bear with me. I lost my window. NPX. It's this guy I wanted to bring up. If I kind of come at this from the demand side down, so we know Corby's got the MCP server. Let's bring up an inspector here. 6277. I'm letting up. I have this running somewhere else. Lots of windows. Sorry, guys. See, there's not nearly enough coffee in my Here it is. Got it. Sorry, guys. All right. So notice if I'm providing authentication and I want to go to an MCP server, I can provide a bearer token. Mm-hmm. So I need to be able to get that. So the first thing I did is I said, look, I'm going to force that quality of service on my protected MCP service, but I need a way to give the browser, the user a token first. So what we have here is, if I go into my space in the foundation, I have a little token printer. It's 5 lines of Python, and it simply returns back your auth header. I protect this token printer with the same gateway, and I just have it exposing a route on /token. So here, /token. And like I said, this is an evolving spec. This is dealing with cards we've been dealt to show what we can do today. And we have a token printer. Now, I would like to return a token to the client so they can use it for 24 hours. So I've created a route on my gateway protected by my enterprise IDP that can give me a token. And if we go to our gateway configuration, so again, I'm in the right space. I go to my service. I have this MCP facade. And if we look at what's been defined in it, this is the runtime config that's coming up. I have this path /token. And if /token is the context on which we're going to hit this endpoint that's been exposed, then we're going to forward the traffic to this token printer internal domain. Now, what this is actually doing is this is saying the last mile, I'm running the token printer in the same foundation today, but it's on a zero trust network of 1. Nothing gets in there unless a network policy has been defined to allow the equivalent of pod-to-pod or AI-to-AI communication, container-to-container comms. And we did this. We're going to see how much configuration. This is full-on multi-hop service mesh level integration in the sense that the call comes in the front door through the load balancer into the Go router, MTLS connectivity into the Spring Cloud gateway, which is itself an app in the platform, with a sidecar that terminates the TLS locally. Then out of the gateway, direct container to container over to containers running the token printer. The token printer is running in its own droplet. It has been, but a special allow network access policy has been created dynamically and automatically so that the gateway can relay in an efficient way straight over to token printer instances. Once it's there, token printer, if we got this far, the gateway has authenticated me. And we're going to see what happens if we don't. And so the token gives me back my bearer token. So let's try that. So if we go into Cognito and we go over to our gateway endpoint, and we paste in here, and we go to /token. What happens is we get forced to log in. And so I'm going through a full enterprise auth check. I'm passkeying my way in. Once I get in, it unwinds back out of the enterprise IDP, back into the UAA, back up to the gateway, and now there's a bearer token in this session, and I have a token relay filter. So I'm sending the token down to the printer so that I can have access to my bearer token. In other setups, if it's all server side, you may not even need to bring the token back to the client. But in this case, we're bringing them because our tools on the client side want that token. So now we have the bearer token. Let's say now we want to actually get to Corby's endpoint. So I've got two. My gateway was created. Sorry, Nikki.
Yeah.
Get that eyesight fixed. I'm just as bad myself.
I was about to bring up my binoculars so I could read that.
When we created the gateway, remember we were looking at the different identity providers. We said create the gateway on this host, MCP Facade Docker, and let's use the pre-onboarded integrations with our enterprise IDP, which are labeled Octoprod. And for now, we're just saying, give me a scope OpenID. And the idea here is we can now say that this gateway is open for business for an arbitrary number of routes to be added to it on different contexts. And as long as you authenticate and your token has an OpenID scope, you will be allowed through. But you'll be forced to authenticate first if you don't come along with a bearer token in your request header. Then we wanted to get to the token printers. How do we expose that? Really, I only need get. But we said on the path token forwarded to the bound service. So when I was creating this, what I did is I did a CF bind service, the token printer app, the gateway with this config. And this config said, don't touch the incoming request, leave it alone. But on /token, forward the traffic. And the order is 10. Now, the order is important because to route to Corby's demo, which is running, it happens to be external. So for now, we're just running it in a different foundation. So the target is outside of my foundation, but send all other contexts. So yeah, we could do /SSE and /message, but just for simplicity, with lower priority, meaning if it's /token, go to the token one. But if it's anything else, go to this one. And we see the target address, but the filters here, don't touch the context, leave it alone. That's important. We'll come back to that. Same thing, scope OpenID and SSO login. And we have an event stream request header to help with those tools that are a bit more particular about the content type. So these, 10 lines of configuration-ish is enough to configure the whole thing so that if we now go back, we can go in a browser where we have an authenticated session. And we can just try, if we go into a tab here, to go to SSE, and we can see we're getting to the endpoint through that gateway, but the client is not aware. It just looks like an MCP endpoint. It happens to check for a bearer token. So now what we can do is we can go to the next step. We can say here, MCP Facade Docker, that's the address, SSE. Let's get that token in here. And if we paste this into MCP Explorer, paste, and let's see if we can connect. And if I pasted it right, yep. And then we can go to tools, and we can see the tools here are coming from the MCP server. So that gateway, Cloud Foundry, the SSE, it's all subsumed under the covers. This client is testing against what would be a typical MCP target with an OAuth internally integrated into the actual code of the MCP server itself. We're trying to pull that up and be able to reuse it. And then finally, if we go into a tool, we can take that token. If I go into cursor, where did I put it? I'm in window mode here. Yeah, so we come up here. Let's enable this so that we have a bearer token. We want to just make sure that's the one that's valid. And paste that in, save that. And if we activate, Oh, come on. Oh, yeah, there we go. So here we have our tools listed in our IDE where we're able to use an MCP service. Yeah, I might have a typo in there. Do I? That's odd. This came up. Yeah, this one's working. This one's not. Okay. So we are seeing the tools list. We're seeing the IDE integration consume this like a traditional MCP server. And think about it. It started off as one that would only run locally under SDDIO. Corby wraps it to become an SSE capable one, and then hosts it in Cloud Foundry. Then I use a Cloud Foundry service to put an SSO integration on top of that. That's tying it to our enterprise IDP of choice, and that's how we fit it all together.
Wow. So I mean that this has got to be pretty hot topic, right? Because it's like you were able to. Let me just like read it back to you and make sure I understood it all, right?
Yeah.
So we took like the base MCP for GitHub or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Which is just normally meant to run on your local laptop, right? But let's, in an enterprise perspective, we want to host that somewhere so that we don't have 1,000 of them, right, in the organization.
Yep.
Or something of that nature. And then, but that's a problem because you just don't want that open on the endpoint with no auth in front of it. So we were able to use SSO, Spring Cloud Gateway and in your token printer app to kind of bind that and wrap that. First, I forgot about that. Before we did all of that, we took Corby has his MCP wrapper, which was able to we basically copy paste the GitHub jar or GitHub MCP agent into that MCP wrapper. Then we have a pushable app to CF. We push that there. It's got a route.
Right.
And then we take all the Spring Cloud Gateway SSO stuff and put in front of that to secure it, so to speak. Am I making sense?
Yeah. So then we have Spring Cloud Gateway, ATN, ATZ. Exactly. And if I could spell, I'll write it. And now we have I would call it a standard client. The client's not aware of any of these layers. It just knows there's an SSE endpoint. Which, and it was interesting because I was going through this with a colleague yesterday, and we came up with some interesting observations. So we have a client. If I could just type for a second. Let's try typing. Okay, we won't type. So the client comes in. My machine is not in a good mood today. So a couple of things we discovered. The spec articulates what contexts you need to use. And this was catching out one of my colleagues. What happens when you got 4 or 5 of these? What do you do? Now, here's what's interesting. My gateway configuration, remember we did token? So we go back up where we configured it. We were able to create a route that would be routed based on a context. That's called a prefix. And I could have, Git MCP server, Jira MCP server, and so on and so forth as different prefixes so that I could use one gateway to present as any number of endpoints that are individual MCP servers with discrete functionality from my tools array. But the MCP spec is a bit particular about the contexts. So buyer beware if you're going to do context-based routing. But what we can do in the gateway is we can use the hostname. Because we're running in a platform where we've got dynamic L7-based ingress and complete control on that, when you push the gateway, if we look at the gateway configuration, which was this guy, we put a host in. But instead of that, what you can have is you can have base URLs. And when you have this, you can have foo, bar, and so on. Foo.x.com. And if you define different host names, fully qualified host names here, instead of a host field as base URIs, then when we were routing, instead of routing on a path definition, we can have a predicate that it routes on one of those host names. So now we can actually use one gateway highly available with all the things we talked about, but we can have any number of MCP server routes defined in it. And that gateway will present them with host name based routing. So we can preserve that /SSE/message and so on. We don't disrupt or have to manipulate requests or responses, because they're essentially getting what looks like a direct pass through to the MCP server. And so we tested that yesterday, and that worked like a charm. Once you use host-based routing, you can have 3 or 4 or 5 or whatever number of MCP servers you want. The other thing might be, we don't want everybody in the company to be allowed to use every MCP endpoint. Well, this is where we barely scratched the surface when we just said our predicate is we want an OpenID scope in the token. Spring Cloud Gateway has a Swiss Army knife number of capabilities to allow us to route based on, like I said, the host name, route based on a context, route based on a scope or permission or role. And you can go all the way into checking to see if they have the appropriate certificate or some common name in an upstream client cert. You can check for anything about their token. So we could create routes that could go all the way down to being fit for single developer in the extreme case as this spec evolves and we find more efficient ways to create multi-tenant access that delegates the credentials through, maybe a bearer token exchange flow or something. We can today configure our routes to support anything we want declaratively to discriminate on for whether this call gets through to a given downstream endpoint. And so that's the real magic of this.
That's exactly where Abhishek was going 30 minutes ago when he raised the question. He said, hey, can we get user ID and email, these OpenID scopes, can we get them into the tool itself from the request? And it sounds like Spring Cloud Gateway would be a fantastic mechanism for being able to accomplish that.
Yeah, so we're kind of seeing some of that already in that I'll call it the workaround for today, because this is not the end game to mirror the bearer token back up again. We'd like to see the spec and everything evolve so that maybe we'll go through a well-known discovery flow and subsume a lot of that grift once the tooling on the front end kind of gives us better, more seamless ways to do it. But we have the flexibility in the gateway to support a number of these things. That said, Token Printer was a downstream app running in the platform on a protected internal network. If we go to the gate where it was set up, that did stay. This one did stage. We were using that. But if we look at our Token Printer and we look at the route that it's defined, it's not available to anyone. We were talking about this earlier. However, that app received the bearer token because all I do in that app is mirror my auth header back to the client as a way to give the client that bearer token today. But it means the bearer token, and therefore all of its content, is going downstream to the target apps that are being protected, including to the MCP servers if I want. The way we enable that is a very simple filter, which is, let's see, it would be in our token route. And it's this one, token relay. That's the most rudimentary or basic way, but that gives the downstream system that we've removed the burden of having to enforce authentication and authorization from them, because calls will not get through unless they've gone through that. However, they may need that credential. They may want to use that information for anything from logging to other kinds of internal controls on what they're going to do on your behalf. And so the short answer is absolutely yes. And this is just one way. We can actually create headers that can be calculated as well to populate other things coming in on that request. We can decorate the incoming request as well. So yeah,
I got a couple of questions for you. First, I'm going to start off with one from Abhishek here, another question from him. So, and I'm going to say, I explained this, I think, in the chat, but I want Mark and Corby make sure what I said is right. So he's a rookie to the gateway. Do we do this so we don't have to manually do the JWT dependency and outsource the auth process? There's really two components into what you talked about. The first is single sign-on. The single sign-on component acts as that interface between the client and whatever IDP of choice, so that provides the authentication and the authorization portion of it. The gateway is what determines where it gets routed. So if you come in, the gateway is going to determine, hey, if you don't have a token, I'm going to send you down to single sign-on, get the token for you. If you do have a token, then you can get to Token Printer. right? That's what provides the gateway or the routing there. I'm imagining that we could go in and do this, very fine grained with that gateway to say, hey, that's where you can do maybe some of the permissions, who has access to what, who doesn't. You could do that within the gateway. Is that correct?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
You will define routes with whatever quality of service on those you want. It could be that there's going to be groups that are in different business units or on different projects. Maybe that translates up to a role or a scope in their token, which is coming from their enterprise IDP. And that's very, very straightforward. We would just add routes that would have those as qualities of service on the routes. But then if it's really dynamic, you may just delegate it downstream and use that information downstream.
Okay. And my next question on this is the context in which the agent's coming in and doing this is based on the user that's running the agent, right? Is that correct? So that user has to be logged on and authenticated. That's actually what's providing the token back, is that user authentication.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, okay. Now my question is that's all well and good. How does that scale when you start looking at agents using multiple, or users using multiple agents? How does that scale from an auditing and tracking standpoint to be able to track which agent was doing what, even though it's coming through the same user, but they may be working on very different projects and you want to be able to audit those?
I would not let one agent do that level of diversity. Remember, we've got the flexibility that we can run agents as services with extremely low overhead. Now, the agents themselves, what are they going to do? What permissions do they have to work on your behalf downstream? This is the other piece of the pie. And this is where we need to establish a trust between the internals of that agent and the token that came downstream. This is an authenticated principle. This is where I'm looking at the JOT bearer flow, token exchange flow, for example. Now, ideally, we'd be in the one security domain. If we're not, there's ways to cross security domains by having a token exchange flow. So the downstream service could trust your token provider and accept that as authentication or a way to authenticate a given user. And now you're in another domain, right? You've bridged into that downstream world. The key here is there's not any requirement to keep it wide open. But as we're growing this, like right now, I would not wide open the Git service, because right now it's just an open ID check. So anybody in the company could come in and use it. Clearly, that's not the end game. We either, with the tools we have right now, have to create different instances with routes that would look for different scopes, that would limit who can go through the front door. But in the end game, I'm convinced we're going to see permissions in whatever those MCP servers do be driven off the auth that was established upstream.
Well, and I guess that's the real crux of my question. So I'm Nikki, I'm in there, I'm doing development. I decide to use agents to go in and do some things for me. If we're authenticating under my context, I should have very different permissions within the foundation to do things, or within the code base to do things, than my agent would. How do we tell the difference if we're authenticating with the user context through SSO? How do we tell the difference between an agent coming in and asking to do something versus me as a human coming in and asking to do something?
The permissions in any JOT token that is the scopes are an intersection in the Venn diagram of your scopes as a developer and the agent scopes as an entity. So if you have, 9 different scopes, and one of them might be some org level internal Git permission thing, the agent would never be given that. So let's just say it has 8 scopes and you've got 9. Even if you authenticate, the tokens being created because you're coming through this token setup that's being used for the agent will never get that 9th scope of yours. That's too high for an agent to have. So this is where the permissions that this can work on are a function of the permissions you want to let it have, generally speaking, intersected with the permissions of the person coming in trying to use it. I think that's where my head goes when I think about what you're saying, because you will always have more permissions than you want that agent to have working on your behalf. And we would configure the gateway in front of the MCP server to never have those, higher level scopes, no matter who comes in asking, and no matter how you're authenticated.
Okay, I got you. So me as a human, if I'm coming in and doing something, I'm not actually going through the gateway. I'm not hitting the same endpoints through the gateway that would help define those permissions. Where the agent, we're setting that up to go through the gateway. so that it does get those permissions. That would be
Yeah.
the difference in how you separate those out.
Yeah, so let's say Nick's our platform admin. He's got the super duper admin credential. He comes in through this door. He is only getting OpenID. There's no other scopes in that token because it's coming through a configuration on an auth domain that says, out of all the scopes in the world, I need them to have auth domain, but I don't want any more scopes. And so this is where we get to restrict based on the agents just how powerful we want to make them in terms of how much they can permeate calls throughout the enterprise. Independent of the rights of the person coming in asking for the token. Now that same Nick could log into CF and have the Uber token, right?
Gotcha.
Because he's doing it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a really powerful piece of the of JOT tokens and OAuth in general. Is that it's that permissions is always a deal you make between yours and the client ID that was registered.
Agreed. Okay.
Yeah. Very interesting question.
And then we've got Chris Phillipson weighing in. He says the DevOps of this seems a little bit fraught with peril, but he really likes the declarative bits here. What are your thoughts on that?
Couldn't agree more. Like I said, we're on a journey here, and this is where we're at. We're not at the finish line, nowhere near. But what we're trying to do is solve for the problem of, like, would we rather have everyone run local GitHub with injected access tokens on their laptops with Docker Engine and no governance control observation and all that? No. What I have is not a finish line. It's an incremental improvement. And I'd love to see proper well-known discovery happen. I'd love to see the tools negate the need to explicitly put a bearer token in and force a login. So it's just, you know, like you wake up in the morning, you log into your internal portal, and that's it for the day. And I would then like to see us have the ability to delegate those permissions into downstream identity domains.
Yep. And so you nailed something that I wanted to say as well. So, and Chris kind of brought this up. You're trying to hit a moving target. The spec's not done yet. Absolutely correct. Yeah. But this is how innovation happens. We don't know what the use cases are. We don't know how customers are going to want to use this. The only way to do that is by throwing experiments out there. Yeah. Are they the most secure? Are they the best? Are they, the end all be all? Absolutely not. And they're liable to change. But that's how you change the spec. That's how you have influence on what's happening, is by providing things like this that are not perfect, because perfect's the enemy of done. You want something out there, that way you can say, okay, this works for us, but now we need all of this backing control or governance or security or auth that goes around with this. So completely agree with you, Chris.
Yep. I will say
we do have some visibility on where this is going. That the MCP spec is getting to the point where they're going to be using a more complex token exchange system with OAuth 2, so that basically where we'll be able to go is just configure a CF SSO tile and then be able to authenticate once to your IDP provider, say your employer, and then be able to pass that auth onto the MCP server. So a lot of these mechanics, a lot of this grunt work that we're kind of seeing here today will kind of disappear. But I was just working on this earlier in the week, and I was literally thinking, man, I really wish Chris was working on this here with me, being able to push the envelope on some of this stuff here.
Yeah. We miss you, Chris. You should always come back. Yeah.
I had an interesting one where I was saying earlier, Corby's setup is some of the most fun stuff to demo as you kind of educate folks on how generative AI is evolving and the difference you can make with embedding vector stores or agents. And I had a demo I did, and I had that one more thing moment at the tail end of the demo, which started off with just a generic, I think, Copilot or something. But it went all the way down to we added an agent. So we started off adding a vector store and uploading white papers I wrote for them. And suddenly the bot was way smarter at answering questions because it was answering with reference material for them. But then the last thing we did after getting into what agentic looks like was we linked in Corby's CF wrapper. And we were able to tell the agent to stop the other agent, which was hilarious. So we had a little hello world time server that say, what time is it? Just to show what demonstrating what agentic looks like. But then I was able to tell the other agent, stop the time server in that space, in that foundation, and boom. The agents are battling each other. We just sort of battle bots with agents. But if you ever wanted to worry about permissions, I can tell you the sizzle is amazing to show off and talking to your foundation to operate it, but you may want to have some very strict governance on the tokens you provide if you're going to give it a actual platform operational entry point.
Yep. You want to be able to kind of isolate those agents, because you're going to find stuff like that. And those are some fun experiments where you get agents going at each other, and they're either collaborative or they become enemies. And it's fun to watch that kind of run out. I want to bring up one more comment from Abhishek here. So he says he's 21. He's searching for resources. We really helped him. By the way, we love to hear that, Abhishek. Thank you very much. We love to hear that we're helping people out. Are we live every Thursday, according to India? The answer is mostly. Sometimes we got to change days. We rarely take a week off, but we do take weeks off every once in a while. But we'll go ahead and kind of preempt a little bit what Nick's going to be later. So make sure you looked at the Cloud Foundry Weekly. Make sure you look at the Cloud Foundry Slack channel. If you're not a member of the Slack channel, join, like, and subscribe to this channel. Absolutely. So that you'll get notified of every show. But the best way to find out if we're not doing it on Thursday is to be on the LinkedIn and look out there, or look on Nick's Twitter, my Twitter, or the Cloud Foundry Twitter. But all of these shows are posted. Even if you miss the live one, they are posted in the live section of the Cloud Foundry Weekly YouTube channel. So great to have you on here, Abhishek. Thank you for joining.
Yes, great to have you. And in classic Netflix style, I dropped half a season's worth of podcast on Transistor this weekend, or Monday. So if you subscribe to the Cloud Foundry Weekly podcast on your podcast player choice, I apologize about getting 6 episodes in one day, but now we're all caught up, and we'll be live, hopefully caught up going forward too. So if you want to listen in the audio format, we're there as well. It's
binging. So, just binge the podcast.
Yes, you can just listen to all past 67 and then tomorrow 68 episodes on your way to VMware Explorer, right?
Speaking of which, it's coming up. Are you guys excited? Explorer?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That looks like it.
Yes. I'm excited. I'm also already tired and hasn't even started yet. So that's why I'm kind of like, yes. This time next week, I think I'll be in a much more relaxed mood. But yes, I'm excited definitely about Explorer. Yes. Yeah, doing some dry runs with Gregory Green this morning. So we're doing a data and Tanzu Platform and a data tutorial. First show of the week, 9 a.m. Monday morning. So if you're there Monday looking for something to do, you're going to see a lot of cool things about Tanzu Data and Tanzu Platform. Let me tell you.
And there's absolutely nobody better to talk about that than Greg Green. I mean, Gregory he has got such a great tone, the way he presents stuff. He is one of my favorite people to talk to. No, excluding the guys that are with us right now, but he is an educational guy. And in fact, he was just one of his classes just passed, some insane amount of users. So congratulations, Greg. If you haven't seen Greg, you want to.
Yeah. And he gets the gold star of breaking all of my AI stuff with actual user load. The first time I've seen that this morning. So we had to back our demo down. Maybe we don't want to send 1,000 orders through the pipeline all at once. Maybe we'll back that down to like 5. All right.
But Nick, I know you're going to be Explorer. Corby, Fynesy, are you guys?
I'll be doing live presentations on Nick's Cloud Foundry Foundation. So give it a workout during the week.
He is becoming, the Kuhn Labs is becoming more than a lab, man. I mean, everybody's using it.
Yeah.
We're definitely power consumption before the call, and I'm like, I've got some really big power bills, and he's like, hold my beer, seriously.
Well, and I wish I could be there, and unfortunately, while y'all are doing that, I'm going to be over in Amsterdam. I'm going to be at the OSS Summit and the AI Dev Days over in Amsterdam next week. So I'll be doing 2 talks there. I hope everybody jumps in. If you're over in the EU, come see me. If you're not, you should be at VMware Explorer. We'll just say that.
Very cool. All right. Thank you so much for being here, Corby and Mark. This was a great show. I've learned a lot. I think our listeners have learned a lot. Thank you all to our current live streamers right now for sticking out this long. Great to see all there, and great. Thank you for the questions. This is a great episode. Do you have any closing thoughts for the audience before we go? Anything you want to send out? Words of wisdom. And it's okay if it's not.
I'm just gonna go fasten your seatbelts. I'm joking with people, going, "Oh, that's like so last quarter." That understanding of this
last quarter.
Yeah,
it used to be.
2 weeks ago is a long time in AI terms.
Yeah, like, and you know what we're seeing, but I just want to call out that I think that this is a marriage made in heaven. We have been writing the book on the most efficient way to run microservices, and here's this new crazy demand for a whole new caliber of microservices, and ultimately a marketplace of them, if you think about it, where people are going to want to stitch together, and they don't even have to code a client anymore. You just give it to the bot, and boom, the spec handles the rest. And so I just think that this is a wonderful place where we can fit the platform and really show off the power it's had for the last 10 years, but in the context where people want to go even faster for a good reason.
Yep.
Yeah,
I've
we've
been
got a lot of
promising Nick
really
I would
smart
do a-
companies out there building the AI tools and the technologies out there, and Cloud Foundry is a great place to make sure that that can get into the hands of the developers and allow them to use them safely. So it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been promising Nick to do a coder demo here. When I finally slow down, I'm going to do that. But hell, Corby, Fynesy, I may join up with you guys. Maybe we can combine all three of these things. What does this
That'd
look
be
like
fun.
from a road
be
development
great.
environment, going all the way through pushing to production? So, we really kind of handle the development side. You've got everything in a box with the platform there. I still believe, and I'll say this live, Cloud Foundry is the best way for developers to get their stuff into production. But what happens before that? So maybe we'll get up and we'll do a joint demo on that as well, because this has been a lot of fun.
Very cool.
All right, guys. Like and subscribe. Y'all know how we end the show.
Yes. Both of you know. So yeah. Right.
If you don't, there will be beatings.
First.
There will be beatings if you don't know how we end the show.
Yes. We all know. All right. 3, 2, 1.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.